Chaos energy is an expansive theory about the world of Sonic the Hedgehog. Although it's simply a theory among fans, there are many instances in the game's universe that shows that chaos energy, while not an explicit or defined system like Ki from Dragon Ball or Chakra from Naruto, is a force that some would consider omnipresent. In this video, I'll be looking at a few different examples of chaos energy in the games, as well as looking at what other people have said regarding the topic of chaos energy in different parts of the internet to get a better understanding of this theory. However, before we can even begin to understand chaos energy, we gotta take a detailed look at the 7 emeralds. The 7 emeralds, more commonly known as the Chaos Emeralds, are 7 powerful gemstones that could turn thoughts into power. This aspect of the Chaos Emeralds hasn't been detailed much in a very long time, which in my opinion is disappointing because it's a really cool detail that makes the emerald's power unique rather than just generic sources of power not much different from other powerful gemstones in Sonic's world like the Phantom Ruby and Warp Topaz. Even though it's not a focused aspect of the emerald's lore anymore, I do want people to become more familiar with the emeralds being wish granters and sources of power because it shows that the emeralds can be used in multiple ways. We see the whole thoughts into power thing be used as a central theme in the Sonic Adventure games, where Chaos uses the negative energy of the emeralds and Sonic literally uses the power of friendship to restore their color and transform into Super Sonic. It's used as a gameplay mechanic in Shadow the Hedgehog, where based on Shadow's actions, he can use the power of the emeralds in destructive or non-destructive ways with moves like Chaos Blast and Chaos Control, which stops time and allows for quick travel between great distances, and Chaos Spear as well. The actual origins of the Chaos Emeralds are largely unknown. I came across a few forum posts where some fans came up with their own theories as to how the emeralds were made. Some think they were made by some being alongside the creation of Earth. One that caught my attention was that the emeralds are crystallized forms of raw energy that already existed in the universe. I love that in Sonic Frontiers they went back to the idea of other alien races being aware of and even being in possession of the emeralds at one point in time. It adds to the mythical nature of the emeralds. Many different beings from around the universe being aware of their power and wanting it for themselves is interesting. If I'm remembering correctly, Sage does say something about the emeralds being native to the ancients' homeworld, but I'm not so sure about that considering that they were surprised by the emeralds reacting to what would later be revealed as the Master Emerald on Earth. Maybe the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds were separated at one point, leading to the ancients obtaining the 7 emeralds. It would explain why the Master Emerald is on Earth well before the ancients eventually flee from their homeworld. Speaking of the Master Emerald, it's the controller of the 7 emeralds. It's able to neutralize the power of the 7 emeralds and, like the others, can turn thoughts into power as seen by the mantra Tikal's grandmother passed down to her and eventually down to Knuckles. The Master Emerald's origins are also unknown. I'm not sure if I'd ever want a story that tells us about the origins of the emerald in full, to be honest. I like the 8 emeralds being shrouded in some type of mystery in that sense. I want to compare the 7 emeralds to other magical gemstones in Sonic's world because I think it's interesting that other stones like the Time Stones, Warp Topaz, and the Phantom Ruby exist, but they all have specific powers compared to the emerald's vast versatility. The emeralds can have their powers siphoned for mechanical use like any of the other gemstones, specifically the Phantom Ruby. However, unlike the Chaos Emeralds, the Phantom Ruby and Warp Topaz can't transform thought into power. The Phantom Ruby specifically seems capable of creating alternate realities, enabling space-time travel and creating hallucinations. The Warp Topaz creates wormholes that allow for quick travel between great distances. Some of these powers aren't too far off from what the emeralds are capable of themselves. I'm not sure about alternate realities and hallucinations, but the emeralds can empower the user to travel great distances in a flash, as well as traveling through time and to other dimensions. In Adventure 1, the Master Emerald shows Knuckles where the remaining pieces are, so if it can do that, it might be able to show someone other kinds of visions as well. I thought it was funny that in Sonato Generations, in Sonic's story, when Tails theorizes that they traveled back in time, Sonic asks, without the Time Stones? I know what I'm about to say hasn't been flat out confirmed, but there's a decent amount of evidence that points to Sonic remembering the events of 06, which would mean that he remembers using the Chaos Emeralds to travel through time. Sonic asking how they were able to travel through time without the Time Stones is funny because he's done it before. I wonder if they're trying to scale back on what exactly the emeralds can do, or if they're trying to give other magical gemstones more relevance in modern times. I'm not mad at it, I just found it to be a funny observation. The emeralds also have copies of them made just like the Phantom Ruby having multiple prototypes and forces. Unlike Eggman's attempts with the Phantom Ruby, Tails pretty much gets it right with the first try with the fake yellow emerald in SA2. So much so that in Shadow Generations, Shadow himself, the artificial being made with the use of the 7 emeralds, has a hard time distinguishing between the real and the fake, but he seems to be the only one able to tell the difference. On the flip side, Sonic is the only one who used the fake emerald extensively, managing to use Chaos Control with it, but we'll expand on that later. I wonder why Eggman never tried to make his own copies of the emeralds. Maybe the potency isn't as strong, but the fact that the fake yellow emerald had some usefulness to it must mean something. I don't know if this is still a thing, but people used to believe that there are multiple sets of Chaos Emeralds, as a lot of the old 90s games shows different shapes of the emeralds, different colors, and Sonic the Fighter shows 8 emeralds not counting the Master Emerald. I'm not too fond of the multiple emerald sets theory myself, but I'll leave a link to a forum where this gets talked about extensively in the description for anyone who's curious about it. From being part of the key to unearthing Babylon Garden, creating life, weaponry, and entire civilizations, the Chaos Emeralds seem to have a sort of omnipresence throughout the history of Sonic's universe. This leads to the theory of chaos energy being an omnipresent force in the universe. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely on the side of chaos energy being omnipresent in Sonic's world and potentially the universe. The reason why is because even though the emerald's radiation does have the power to strengthen those who are exposed to it, general emerald radiation doesn't seem to affect the world at large. The case you can make for chaos energy being omnipresent is that over time, the emerald's general radiation of their power, alongside traveling to a bunch of different worlds over time, spread the chaos energy around enough for it to eventually become the innate energy of the universe. Maybe the emeralds had a hand in creating Sonic's universe, making Chaos Emerald innate from the start. If we're assuming that chaos energy is innate, that means that everyone in Sonic's world possesses chaos energy, but only either a few of them can harness it, or everybody can harness the energy, but it would be harder for some to use than others. This would explain why certain characters have powers like Sonic's wind manipulation and Silver's psychokinetic powers, but someone like Tails doesn't have any supernatural powers. Maybe the chaos energy doesn't just unlock supernatural powers, but also expands physical and mental capabilities as well. Tails is a boy genius whose inventions become more impressive over the course of his many adventures with Sonic. Rouge and Amy possess super strength, as does Knuckles, who can also glide. Amy seems to be a hybrid of sorts. She uses some level of psychic premonition with her tarot cards on top of being incredibly strong. Another way of looking at chaos energy is that some people are born with larger amounts of it than others, which means that it's easier for them to access their powers. The way I look at and define chaos energy is as a type of energy that is specifically drawn from exposure to the chaos emeralds over time, which leads to a gradual increase in power that allows a person to develop new skills. The most obvious examples of this being Sonic and Shadow themselves, who become more capable of dealing with monsters they weren't capable of fighting in their base forms. Sonic with Perfect Chaos, Shadow with Metal Overlord, and Devil Doom, etc. It also explains why Sonic was able to use Chaos Control with the fake emerald in SA2. Sonic has plenty of exposure to the 8 emeralds by the time that event happens, and since the fake emerald seems to have some power to it, Sonic's abundance of chaos energy carried the yellow emerald over the finish line, which allowed him to escape the pod with Chaos Control. Chaos is the other obvious example, as it was once a Chao but became the ancient water spirit due to prolonged exposure to the 8 emeralds at the shrine. Over time, Sonic was able to develop his boost power to travel long distances even faster. Eventually, other characters would develop boost powers themselves, as seen in Sonic Frontiers, where Knuckles, Amy, and Tails can use boost power. I'm not counting the full boost gauge abilities because I believe that cyberspace gave them powers to summon more skills that they don't innately have. I saw that someone on the Sonic Stadium forums named Aiko shared a similar opinion to mine that chaos energy isn't the innate energy of Sonic's universe. They gave examples such as Blaze potentially getting her powers from Solaris, and Silver potentially having access to psychokinetic powers through his gloves, among other examples. Another interesting read that defines chaos energy comes from a Tumblr post by a user named Super Emeralds. There are some interesting ideas here, such as chaos energy being innate, but not something that can be produced by oneself. It's an energy that you can convert through the use of the chaos emeralds or from the chaos energy already present around you. He also talks about the concept of different forms of chaos energy, which nobody else mentioned from what I was able to find. It's based on the gameplay mechanic from Shadow 05, where blue represents hero energy, red represents dark energy, and a cool twist where yellow represents the purest form of chaos energy. I found this post to be interesting because yellow aura representing the purest form of chaos energy was something touched upon in a video I saw where someone compared Perfect Chaos to Supersonic, claiming that Supersonic was also Perfect Chaos but represented differently. It's so interesting to see an overlap of ideas from different people in the community, arriving at a similar conclusion through different processes of thought. I won't dive any deeper into Super Emerald's post. It didn't introduce anything new about the concept of chaos energy that I didn't already know aside from yellow aura, but the breakdown was great and I appreciated the scientific aspect he used to expand upon the idea. I strongly suggest reading the full post for yourselves. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find much about chaos energy being passed down through generations. There's been a theory going around since the dawn of time that Silver is a descendant of Amy. A subscriber of mine brought this up in the comments of my Silver the Hedgehog video, and I further speculated that as Amy's psychic premonition abilities become more central to her character, it's possible that this is passed down through multiple generations until it reaches Silver, who manifests this as psychokinesis. Someone else on one of my community posts also brings up the same ideas I had about the possibility of chaos energy being passed down through generations, also using Silver and Amy as examples. It's an interesting idea that hasn't gotten much attention. It makes sense that it hasn't though, considering there isn't much to look at to even begin to form this theory with much depth, but I hope someone tackles this idea in the future. Can't talk about the Chaos Emeralds and Chaos Energy without mentioning rings. The origins of rings in Sonic's world, like the Emeralds, isn't known. All we know is that the rings are multi-purpose, just like the emeralds. They can be used as currency, fashion, used to protect characters from death upon receiving damage, and most importantly, acts as an energy source. Rings are needed to keep super forms up and running. Rings are what Sonic and Shadow need to be able to keep boosting. Rings are also needed to access the special stages where the emeralds reside. In Sonic 3, the special stages reside inside giant rings that act as warp points to the stages. It's easy to speculate that the rings are made of condensed chaos energy. They are the gateways to obtaining and wielding chaos energy as power. I don't think it's a coincidence that rings and super forms in early 3D Sonic games share a similar metallic gold texture. One could even speculate that the key used in Sonic Heroes needed to reach the special stages shares the same property as rings. They both have a metallic gold texture and disappear once you've been hit. Inhibitor rings are the rings created by Gerald Robotnik to keep Shadow's power in check. If Shadow were to take them off for an extended period, it's possible that he could die. I always thought it was interesting that there are certain rings that look just like the ones you could collect in stages but can't be consumed. Shadow's inhibitor rings and the fashion rings Amy wears are just two examples that immediately come to my head. Apparently in Sonic 06, there's a boy who talks about saving up rings to buy something. It's possible that humans can't absorb rings due to either possessing no chaos energy or having such a small amount that absorbing rings for energy is impossible for them. I found yet another good thread on the Sonic Stadium forums from 13 years ago where a bunch of people speculate about rings in relation to the emeralds and why humans seemingly can't absorb them. Fascinating stuff. For as much as I'd love to know more about the rings, like the emeralds, I prefer the connection to be obvious but never stated. At most, I'd like some lore that ties rings and chaos energy together, but from what I've gathered, it seems like the consensus in the fandom is that rings are made up of chaos energy, and even if we never get an official word on that, I'm cool with the fan theory. It's satisfying enough for me, and I like when Sonic Team leaves things up for interpretation in Sonic's world. I wouldn't be having so much fun creating my own theories or looking at what others say if that weren't the case. Chaos energy is one of the most interesting theories and concepts in Sonic. Despite having many different approaches to the theory, I find it interesting that chaos energy seems to have a somewhat consistent definition among Sonic fans. Once again, I'm leaving a bunch of links to different forum discussions and posts about chaos energy in the description below, so be sure to check them out. What do you guys think of chaos energy in Sonic? How would you define it? Do you like my definition, or do you think about chaos energy differently? Have any thoughts about the Chaos Emeralds themselves you'd like to share? I encourage you to leave a comment below. I'll always get some level of enjoyment from reading what other Sonic fans think of these theories. If you like this video, check the channel for more Sonic theory goodness. Shout out to you for watching, that's all I got for now. Peace.